Graystone Prison stood like a monument to despair, its towering walls now crumbling and overgrown with ivy. The locals whispered tales of its haunted halls, but few dared to approach. It was a place where darkness lingered, a place that called to those who sought to uncover the truth behind its cursed past. Ethan Cross adjusted his headset and glanced at the imposing structure. "Graystone Prison," he muttered, "where even the ghosts are afraid to haunt." Dr. Lena Park, standing beside him, smirked. "You know, Ethan, your knack for understatement is truly inspiring." "Just trying to keep things light, Lena. We've got a long night ahead." The team had arrived at Graystone with one mission: to investigate the recent disappearances and unexplained phenomena that had drawn the attention of their superiors. Ethan, a veteran investigator with a penchant for sarcasm, led the group with a blend of confidence and dry humor that kept morale high even in the darkest of situations. Officer Mike Harris, a local cop assigned to assist them, approached with a scowl. "You folks really think you're gonna find anything in there? Place has been abandoned for decades." Ethan raised an eyebrow. "Just here to do our job, officer. Though I must say, your optimism is contagious." Harris grunted. "Yeah, well, good luck. You'll need it." As the sun dipped below the horizon, the team began setting up their equipment. Jake Lawson, the tech expert, busied himself with the array of cameras, motion sensors, and EMF detectors, while Sarah Martinez checked their weapons and supplies. "Ethan," Jake called out, "we've got everything ready. Just waiting on your go." Ethan nodded. "All right, team. Let's move out. And remember, stick together. This place has a reputation for a reason." They entered the prison, their footsteps echoing through the empty halls. The air was thick with dust and the scent of decay. Lena's flashlight flickered, casting long shadows that danced along the walls. "Comforting, isn't it?" she said dryly. "Just the kind of place you'd want to spend a cozy evening." "Keep your eyes peeled," Ethan replied. "We're here for answers, not a vacation." As they moved deeper into the prison, the temperature dropped noticeably. Strange noises echoed from unseen corners, and an oppressive feeling of being watched settled over them. It wasn't long before they encountered their first anomaly. Sarah paused, her flashlight focused on a darkened cell. "Ethan, over here. Look at this." Inside the cell, faint scratches covered the walls, forming patterns that seemed almost deliberate. Lena stepped closer, her breath visible in the cold air. "These marks, they're not random. They look like symbols." Jake scanned the area with his EMF detector, getting some serious readings here. Whatever made these marks, it wasn't human. Ethan frowned. "Great. Let's document it and keep moving. We need to find the source of these disturbances." They continued their exploration, encountering more symbols and strange phenomena along the way. Whispers seemed to follow them, disembodied voices that faded as quickly as they appeared. Officer Harris, trailing behind, grew increasingly uneasy. "Hey, Cross," he said, his voice trembling slightly. "You really think there are, ghosts in here?" Ethan glanced back with a smirk. "Ghosts? Maybe. But I'm more worried about what's making those ghosts so restless." As they descended into the lower levels of the prison, the air grew colder and the atmosphere more oppressive. The team's banter turned to focused determination as they approached the heart of the prison's darkness. They found themselves in a large chamber, its walls lined with ancient, crumbling books and artifacts. At the center of the room stood an altar, covered in strange symbols and surrounded by the remnants of old candles. Lena examined the altar closely. This is it, the center of whatever rituals they were performing here. Ethan nodded. All right, let's get to work. Jake, start recording. Sarah, keep an eye out for anything unusual. Lena, see if you can decipher those symbols. As they began their investigation, the air grew colder still, and a sense of foreboding settled over them. The symbols on the altar seemed to pulse with a malevolent energy, and the shadows in the room grew darker and more defined. Suddenly, a low growl echoed through the chamber, and the shadows seemed to come alive. The team tensed, weapons at the ready. Ethan, Jake whispered, we're not alone. Ethan's eyes narrowed. Stay sharp. Whatever's here, it's not friendly. The growling grew louder, and from the darkness emerged a figure, its form shifting and grotesque. A skinwalker. The creature lunged at them, and the room erupted into chaos. The skinwalker lunged at Ethan with a speed that defied belief. Its eyes glowed with a malevolent hunger as its clawed hands reached out. Ethan barely had time to react, but his reflexes kicked in, honed by years of training and countless encounters with the supernatural. Jake, the stun gun! Ethan shouted, dodging the creature's swipe. Jake fumbled with his equipment, managing to grab the modified stun gun designed for paranormal entities. He aimed and fired, the device crackling with energy as it made contact with the skinwalker. The creature recoiled, emitting an ear-piercing screech before disappearing into the shadows. Nice shot, Lena said, her voice tinged with relief. But I doubt that's the last of them. Ethan nodded, catching his breath. Everyone all right? Sarah checked her gear, her face a mask of concentration. We're good, but we need to keep moving. That thing will be back, and it won't be alone. They regrouped, the tension palpable. As they moved deeper into the prison, the air grew thicker, almost suffocating. The darkness seemed to press in on them, each shadow a potential threat. Ethan led the way, his flashlight cutting through the gloom. This place gives me the creeps, Harris muttered, his voice barely above a whisper. Why'd it have to be skinwalkers? Lena shot him a wry smile. Would you prefer demons? Or maybe a nice, friendly poltergeist? Harris shuddered. I'll pass, thanks. They reached another chamber, this one lined with cells that seemed to stretch into infinity. The faint sound of dripping water echoed, amplifying the eerie silence. Jake scanned the area with his EMF detector. The readings are off the charts. Whatever's here, it's powerful. Ethan studied the surroundings, his instincts on high alert. Stay sharp. There's more to this place than just skinwalkers. As they moved further into the chamber, they came across an old, rusted door marked solitary confinement. The door was slightly ajar, and a faint, otherworldly light seeped through the gap. Solitary confinement, Sarah said, her voice tinged with unease. If there's any place that's haunted, it's in there. Ethan pushed the door open, revealing a narrow corridor lined with small, claustrophobic cells. The light grew brighter, emanating from the far end of the corridor. The team advanced cautiously, their senses heightened. At the end of the corridor, they found another chamber, this one dominated by a large, ornate mirror. The light seemed to be coming from within the mirror itself, casting strange reflections around the room. Lena approached the mirror, her curiosity piqued. This is unlike anything I've ever seen. It's almost hypnotic. Ethan pulled her back gently. Careful. Mirrors can be gateways for all kinds of entities. As they examined the mirror, a voice echoed through the chamber, low and malevolent. "You should not have come here." The team spun around, weapons at the ready. From the shadows emerged a figure, its form shifting and indistinct. A shadow man. "Who are you?" Ethan demanded, his voice steady despite the rising fear. The shadow man chuckled, a sound that sent chills down their spines. "I am a guardian of this place, and you are trespassers." Sarah stepped forward, her gun aimed at the figure. "We're here to uncover the truth about Graystone. We're not leaving until we do." The shadow man laughed again, the sound echoing eerily. "The truth. You cannot handle the truth of this place. Leave now, or suffer the consequences." Ethan tightened his grip on his weapon. "We're not going anywhere." The shadow man hissed, its form shifting into something more monstrous. "So be it." The room plunged into darkness, and the air grew frigid. The team braced themselves as the shadow man lunged at them, its form twisting and contorting in unnatural ways. Ethan fired his weapon, but the bullets seemed to pass through the entity without effect. "Jake, the mirror!" Ethan shouted. "It's the source." Jake nodded, rushing to the mirror with a device in hand. He placed it against the glass, activating it. The device emitted a high-pitched frequency, causing the mirror to crack and shatter. The shadow man let out a piercing scream, its form dissipating into the darkness. The light from the mirror faded, leaving the room in silence. Lena let out a breath she didn't realize she was holding. "That was intense." Ethan nodded, his expression grim. "And it's not over yet. There's more to this place, and we need to find it." They regrouped, the sense of urgency growing. As they moved through the prison, they encountered more supernatural phenomena. Disembodied voices, cold spots, and shadowy figures that disappeared as quickly as they appeared. Ethan's mind raced as they pieced together the puzzle. The warden's journal, the symbols, the mirror, it all pointed to a larger, more sinister force at work. And they were running out of time. "Stay focused," he said, his voice steady. "We've got a lot more to uncover before dawn." The team pressed on, their resolve unshaken. They had come to Graystone to uncover the truth, and they wouldn't leave until they did, no matter the cost. The deeper they ventured into Graystone Prison, the more oppressive the atmosphere became. Ethan led the way, his flashlight piercing the darkness. The walls seemed to close in around them, the air growing colder with each step. "Anyone else feel like they're in a horror movie?" Harris quipped, trying to lighten the mood. "Just as long as you're not the comic relief character who gets killed first," Lena shot back, her tone dry. "Ha ha," Harris muttered, but the faint smile on his face showed he appreciated the banter. As they turned a corner, the group encountered a heavy, iron door, its surface marred with strange, arcane symbols. Ethan recognized some of them from the warden's journal. They depicted protection spells and warding sigils, meant to keep something contained. "Looks like this is where the real fun begins," Sarah said, her voice steady but her eyes wary. "Any idea what's behind door number 1? Jake asked, setting up his equipment. Ethan shook his head. "Only one way to find out." He pushed the door open, revealing a vast, dimly lit chamber. The room was dominated by a large, circular stone altar, covered in dried blood and surrounded by more of the strange symbols. Chains hung from the ceiling, and the air was thick with the smell of decay. "Well, this is cozy," Lena remarked, her sarcasm barely masking her discomfort. Sarah approached the altar, her EMF detector buzzing wildly. The energy levels here are off the charts. Whatever happened here, it was powerful. Ethan joined her, examining the markings. These symbols, they're a mix of different occult practices. Someone went to great lengths to perform some kind of ritual. A sudden low growl echoed through the chamber, sending a chill down their spines. The team whirled around, weapons at the ready. From the shadows emerged a figure, its eyes glowing with a malevolent light. It was a crawler, its twisted form barely recognizable as human. "Well, that's just fantastic," Harris muttered, raising his gun. The crawler lunged at them, its movements unnaturally fast. Ethan fired, the bullets tearing through the creature's flesh, but it barely slowed down. Sarah joined in, her shots more precise, targeting the crawler's head. With a final guttural scream, the creature collapsed to the ground, its body dissolving into a foul-smelling mist. "Everyone okay?" Ethan asked, scanning the room for more threats. "We're good," Jake replied, though his voice was shaky. "But we need to figure out what the hell is going on here." Ethan nodded, his mind racing. The warden's journal mentioned a summoning ritual, meant to harness the power of ancient spirits. But something went wrong. The entities they called forth weren't spirits, they were demons. Lena shuddered. Demons, skinwalkers, shadow men. This place is a nightmare buffet. "And we haven't even gotten to the main course yet," Sarah added grimly. Ethan's phone buzzed, breaking the tension. It was a message from the Secret Service Paranormal Investigation Team. "We've detected a massive surge of paranormal activity centered around Graystone. Reinforcements are on the way. Proceed with extreme caution." "Looks like we have backup," Ethan said, showing the message to the team. "About time," Harris muttered. "I was starting to think we were the only ones crazy enough to be here." The team pressed on, their determination unwavering. They navigated through a series of corridors, each one more labyrinthine than the last. The sounds of their footsteps echoed, mingling with distant whispers and eerie moans. "These walls have seen a lot of suffering," Sarah said quietly. "It's no wonder the energy here is so dark." As they turned another corner, they stumbled upon a hidden passage, partially concealed by debris. Jake cleared the entrance, revealing a staircase leading downward. "Anyone else feel like we're about to descend into hell?" Lena asked, her attempt at humor falling flat. Ethan took a deep breath. Only one way to find out. The staircase led them to a cavernous underground chamber, illuminated by a faint, otherworldly glow. The walls were lined with ancient runes, pulsating with a sinister energy. At the center of the room stood a massive stone door, covered in chains and more of the protective symbols. "This must be it," Ethan said, his voice filled with a mix of awe and dread. "The heart of the prison's darkness." As they approached the door, a loud crash echoed from above. The team tensed, their weapons drawn. Moments later, a group of armed men in tactical gear burst into the chamber, led by a stern-faced woman. "Agent Miller, Secret Service Paranormal Division," she introduced herself. "We've been monitoring your progress. Looks like you could use some help." Ethan nodded, relief washing over him. "Glad to have you. We've encountered skinwalkers, shadow men, and now a crawler. This place is crawling with entities." Agent Miller's expression was grim. "We know. That's why we're here. This door, it's a gateway. If we don't close it, more of those things will keep coming." Jake set up his equipment, preparing to breach the door. "How do we close it?" "With this," Agent Miller said, producing a small ornate box. "It's a containment device designed to seal supernatural gateways." Ethan took the box, his fingers trembling slightly. "Let's do this." As Jake worked on the chains, the chamber began to tremble, the runes glowing brighter. The air grew thick with a palpable sense of menace. The door creaked open, revealing a swirling vortex of darkness. Ethan stepped forward, the containment device in hand. "Here goes nothing." With a swift motion, he activated the device, throwing it into the vortex. The chamber erupted in a blinding flash of light, the air filled with an ear-splitting roar. The darkness was sucked into the device, the door slamming shut with a final resounding boom. The team collapsed to the ground, exhausted but victorious. The oppressive energy dissipated, replaced by an eerie silence. "We did it," Sarah said, her voice filled with relief. "It's over." Ethan nodded, his heart still pounding. "For now. But something tells me this isn't the last we've seen of Graystone's darkness." As they made their way back to the surface, the weight of their experiences settled over them. They had faced unimaginable horrors and emerged victorious, but the scars would remain. Ethan looked at his team, their faces etched with determination. "We came here to uncover the truth, and we did. But our work isn't over. There are more places like Graystone out there, more secrets to uncover." Harris grinned, despite the exhaustion. "And more nightmares to face." Lena chuckled. "Just another day in the life of ghost hunters, right?" Ethan smiled, feeling a sense of camaraderie and purpose. "Right. Let's get back to HQ. We have a lot of work ahead of us." As they left Graystone Prison behind, the team knew that their journey was far from over. The world was full of darkness and mystery, but they were ready to face it head-on. Together, they would continue to hunt the supernatural, uncovering the secrets that lay hidden in the shadows. The long drive back to headquarters was mostly silent, each team member lost in their thoughts. Ethan, at the wheel, couldn't shake the sense of unease that lingered despite their victory. Graystone Prison was now a grim memory etched into their minds, but the echo of what they had faced still reverberated in the quiet hum of the vehicle. Sarah was flipping through her notes, trying to make sense of the chaotic night. "We need to analyze the runes we saw in that underground chamber," she said, her voice tinged with exhaustion. "They were unlike anything I've ever seen." "Good luck with that," Harris replied, leaning back with a tired grin. "Last time I tried translating ancient symbols, I ended up with a translation that read, 'Beware of the duck.'" Lena chuckled despite herself. "Maybe we need a better translator." But in all seriousness, those symbols were powerful. They might be connected to other paranormal disturbances. Agent Miller, who had joined them for the ride, remained mostly silent, her gaze fixed on the road ahead. She finally spoke up. "We'll need to report this incident to the higher-ups. They'll want a detailed analysis of what happened, including the containment device." As they arrived at their headquarters, a sleek, modern building starkly contrasting the ancient horror they had just escaped, the team was greeted by a swarm of forensic specialists and paranormal analysts. They quickly moved into a secure debriefing room, where a large table was covered with maps, photographs, and other evidence from their investigation. "Welcome back," Dr. Evelyn Carter, a leading paranormal researcher, said, her voice a blend of concern and curiosity. "I've been briefed on your encounter. I hope you're all in one piece." "Barely," Ethan said, dropping into a chair and rubbing his eyes. "We've got a lot to unpack, starting with the nature of those entities. Dr. Carter nodded, her eyes scanning the evidence. I've reviewed the preliminary data. The entities you encountered, skinwalkers, crawlers, and the Shadow Man, are all highly dangerous. But the real question is why Graystone was such a focal point for them. It's not just about the prison, Sarah interjected. We need to look at the history of the area. Graystone's been a site of multiple tragedies over the decades. There are rumors of rituals and occult practices linked to it. Dr. Carter leaned forward. We've also found evidence that suggests there were government experiments conducted at Graystone during the Cold War. Some believe these experiments were meant to harness supernatural forces. Lena raised an eyebrow. So, you're saying the government might have inadvertently unleashed something dark? That's one theory, Dr. Carter said. Another is that Graystone itself was built on a site with pre-existing supernatural significance. Agent Miller cleared her throat. Before we dive into the historical analysis, we need to address the immediate concerns. The containment device worked, but it's only a temporary measure. We have to ensure that the portal at Graystone remains sealed and that no more entities come through. As the team began to sift through the evidence, the room was filled with the sounds of rustling papers and clicking keyboards. The tension was palpable, but so was a sense of camaraderie that had formed during their ordeal. Harris broke the silence. So, what's the plan now? More ghost hunting? Because I'm pretty sure my ghost hunting gear needs a serious upgrade. I'm thinking more along the lines of extensive research, Ethan said. We need to uncover the full history of Graystone and its connection to the supernatural. Plus, we need to keep an eye on any related paranormal activities. Dr. Carter nodded in agreement. I'll arrange for the necessary research resources. We'll need historical records, interviews with locals, and a review of any government documents related to the Cold War experiments. The conversation was interrupted by a sudden loud knock on the door. An urgent-looking technician burst in, holding a tablet. Sorry to interrupt, he said breathlessly, but we've just received a report of unusual activity at another location. It's not far from Graystone. Ethan's heart sank. Not more of this. Dr. Carter's expression grew serious. Where is it? The technician pointed to a location on the map. It's an old asylum, Ravenswood Sanitarium. There have been reports of strange lights and sounds. We're concerned it might be related. Agent Miller's eyes narrowed. Ravenswood? That place has been abandoned for years. If something's happening there, it could be another portal or an entity trying to cross over. Ethan turned to his team. Looks like our work isn't done. Ravenswood might be our next destination. The team gathered their equipment, ready to face whatever new horrors awaited them. As they prepared to leave, Sarah glanced back at Dr. Carter. We'll need all the help we can get. Dr. Carter nodded. I'll keep monitoring the situation here and provide any assistance you might need. Be careful. As the team headed out, Ethan felt a mix of apprehension and resolve. The mysteries of Graystone Prison were just the beginning. The supernatural world was vast and treacherous, and their quest to uncover its secrets had only just begun. Ravenswood Sanitarium, Ethan said as they drove toward their new destination. Let's hope it's not as nightmarish as Graystone. Harris chuckled nervously. If it is, at least we'll have another story for the ghost hunting blog. The team laughed, the sound a brief reprieve from the tension. But as they approached Ravenswood, the sense of foreboding grew stronger. Whatever awaited them in the abandoned asylum, they were ready to face it together. And as they crossed the threshold into the darkness, they knew that their journey through the world of the supernatural was far from over. The Ravenswood Sanitarium loomed in the distance, its silhouette a dark, jagged line against the night sky. The once grand asylum, now reduced to a crumbling ruin, seemed to pulse with an unnatural energy. The team's headlights cut through the gloom, revealing broken windows and overgrown vegetation that choked the pathways. Ethan adjusted the strap of his heavy gear, feeling the weight of their previous encounter still weighing on him. "All right, everyone, let's get this show on the road. Remember, we're dealing with the unknown. Keep your wits about you." Lena, gripping her infrared camera, gave a nod. "I'm more concerned about what's inside. Graystone was unsettling, but this place looks like it's had more than its share of dark secrets." Sarah checked her EMF meter, which was already buzzing with activity. "The readings are spiking even before we've entered. That's never a good sign." Agent Miller, still in tactical gear, gave a reassuring nod. "We've got a support team on standby. If anything goes south, they'll be here fast." As they approached the main entrance, a metal gate creaked open with an eerie groan, as if protesting their intrusion. The group made their way into the asylum's decaying lobby, where the air was thick with dust and the smell of mildew. The grandeur of the old building was evident in the high ceilings and ornate, though now tarnished, decorations. The team split into pairs to cover more ground. Ethan and Lena took the eastern wing, where the light of their flashlights revealed shattered windows and debris-strewn floors. The walls were covered in disturbing graffiti, symbols and phrases that seemed to writhe in the flickering light. "So, what's the plan?" Lena asked, her voice barely concealing her nervousness. "Find the source of the disturbance and close any potential portals?" "That's the gist of it," Ethan replied, glancing at the old records scattered on the floor. "We should also keep an eye out for any significant paranormal activity, something that might explain why this place is so restless." As they moved deeper into the asylum, the air grew colder. Ethan's breath formed misty clouds in the flashlight's beam. The EMF meter's readings fluctuated wildly, confirming that they were in the heart of something truly malevolent. Meanwhile, Sarah and Agent Miller were exploring the West Wing, where reports of strange lights had originated. They navigated through rooms filled with broken furniture and torn psychiatric equipment, their footsteps echoing in the silence. "This place gives me the creeps," Sarah muttered, her breath visible in the cold air. "But we need to find out why there's so much activity." Agent Miller nodded, her flashlight illuminating a peculiar symbol carved into the wall. "Look at this. It's similar to the runes we saw at Graystone." Sarah examined the carving closely. "It's not exactly the same, but there's a resemblance. If these symbols are related, they might be creating a conduit for supernatural entities." Back in the eastern wing, Ethan and Lena discovered a partially hidden staircase leading to the basement. "I've got a bad feeling about this," Lena said as she descended cautiously. "Why does every creepy place seem to have a basement full of nightmares?" Ethan chuckled dryly. "It's like the architectural rule for abandoned asylums. If it's creepy, make sure the basement is even creepier." The basement was cold and damp, its walls covered in mold and grime. The air was thick with an oppressive presence. As they moved deeper, Ethan's flashlight beam caught sight of something unsettling, old rusted shackles bolted to the walls. "Lovely," Lena said, her voice tinged with sarcasm. "Just what we need. Evidence of past tortures." Yeah, and who knows what other horrors this place might be hiding, Ethan said, examining the shackles with a frown. Let's keep moving. Their exploration led them to a large room at the heart of the basement. The room was dominated by a massive, ancient stone altar covered in strange symbols similar to those found earlier. Ethan felt a shiver run down his spine as he approached the altar. Lena set up the video equipment, while Ethan carefully examined the symbols. This altar might be a focal point for whatever's causing the disturbances. It's like a beacon for negative energy. As they worked, the temperature in the room plummeted suddenly. Ethan's breath came out in frosty puffs. The EMF meter went haywire, and a low, guttural growl echoed through the chamber. "Get ready," Ethan warned, his voice steady despite the fear creeping in. "We've got company." The shadows in the room seemed to writhe and shift. Out of the darkness, a figure began to take shape, a shadowy, humanoid form with piercing, malevolent eyes. It moved with an unnatural, jerking gait, a crawler, its limbs contorted at odd angles. "Is this a joke?" Lena whispered, her voice trembling. "Because if it is, it's not funny." Ethan raised his ghost hunting device, trying to get a read on the entity. "No joke. This is very real, and it's not alone." The Shadow Man's chilling gaze locked onto them, its eyes glowing with an otherworldly light. It lunged forward with terrifying speed, and Ethan and Lena scrambled to defend themselves. The team's equipment was useless against the sheer terror of the creature, and their struggle became a frantic fight for survival. The room seemed to close in on them as the crawler's horrific form advanced. Lena grabbed the containment device, desperately trying to activate it. Ethan provided cover, using every ounce of his strength to fend off the nightmarish entity. In the midst of the chaos, Agent Miller and Sarah burst into the basement, their faces pale but determined. They quickly assessed the situation, joining the fight against the crawler. "Focus on the containment device," Agent Miller shouted. "We need to get this thing trapped before it's too late." With a final, desperate effort, Lena managed to activate the containment device, casting a glowing barrier around the entity. The crawler screeched in frustration as it was pulled back into the darkness, its form shrinking and eventually vanishing with a final, echoing wail. The room fell silent, the oppressive presence lifting as the entity was contained. Ethan, Lena, Sarah, and Agent Miller stood amidst the debris, their breaths heavy and labored. "Is everyone okay?" Ethan asked, his voice strained. "I think so," Lena replied, her hands shaking. "That was intense." Sarah nodded, her face pale but resolute. "We need to get out of here and make sure this place is properly sealed. And we need to report everything to Dr. Carter." As they made their way back to the surface, the team knew their ordeal was far from over. Ravenswood Sanitarium had revealed its horrors, but the darkness they faced was only a fragment of a much larger, more sinister force. They emerged into the night, the cold air a stark contrast to the terror they had just faced. The haunted echoes of Ravenswood Sanitarium would stay with them, a chilling reminder of the dangers lurking in the shadows. The battle was won, but the fight against the unseen abyss was far from over.